Hi there. Today I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I'm going to talk about Donald Trump in terms of an educational story that he's been telling a lot. And I want to talk about it because the story is weird and his logic behind it is also bizarre, and it is a good example of how not to ask a question if you are a teacher and you're someone designing a test. For several years, Donald Trump's been talking about electric vehicles. And one of the things he talks about is that if you make a boat into an electrically powered boat rather than diesel, then the boat will be too heavy and it won't be able to float.
I said, how is it? He said, it's a problem, sir. They want us to make all electric boats.
Forgive me for interrupting his speech every so often, but he goes on a lot of tangents, and this is my first Trump video, and editing this is a challenge.
They want to make it all electric. He said, the problem is the boat is so heavy, it can't float. I said, that sounds like a problem.
Okay, so problem number one, the boat can't float. That is a reasonable and legitimate problem. Please continue.
70-mile radius. You have to go out 70 miles before you can really start the boat up. And you go out at 2 knots. That's essentially almost like 2 miles an hour.
2 knots is 2.3 miles per hour. So if you're the sort of person who needs that for your boat story, here you go.
I say, how long does it take you to get out there? Many hours.
Okay, so you have to go out 70 miles at 2 knots or 2.3 miles per hour. So here we have our first math question. Okay, so you have 70 miles and you're not traveling at miles per hour, you're traveling at knots. So the first thing you have to do is convert knots into miles per hour. So you know that your 2 knots is actually 2.3. And then you would take 70 and divide that by 2.3, and you'd end up with 30.4 hours.
And then you're allowed to go around for 10 minutes, but you have to come back because the batteries only last for a very short period of time.
Okay, so you go out 30.4 hours, then you tool around for 10 minutes, and then you have to come back. So that boat is operating for about 61 hours on one battery charge. That's pretty good.
So I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question. And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart.
Donald Trump's uncle was a professor at MIT. So that's why he keeps bringing that up. But much the same way that my mom is a lawyer, that doesn't make me a lawyer.
He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight?
If the boat was so heavy that it would sink from the weight of the battery, it would just sink immediately at the dock. You wouldn't be able to get on the boat in the first place.
And you're in the boat, and you have this tremendously powerful battery, and the battery's now underwater, and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately.
After doing a little bit of research, the earliest I could find of him talking about this, at least at a rally, was 2023. But apparently he's been going on and on about how much he hates sharks for years.
So there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat. If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
Okay, great. So we have our question. Now, when I teach, I give kids a moment to really think about what's being asked before you just blurt out an answer. So let's think together of some solutions that we could do if we're left with the choice of jump at shark or be electrocuted by a battery. Now, before we share our answers, let's check out what Donald Trump says, because, again, he's been thinking about this and talking about this a lot, so his answer must be awesome.
But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time.
Couldn't you just jump off the part of the boat where the shark isn't, instead of just at the shark, rather than to be electrocuted or attacked by a shark? Like, you can jump the other way, right? Like, you don't have to go where the shark is.
I'm not getting near the shark.
Before the boat sinks and the battery gets wet, you could throw the battery at the shark and then electrocute the shark with the battery. Does that work for you?
The boat is so heavy, it can't float.
Ah, right. The battery is really heavy and it makes the boat not float, which would, of course, lead to this problem, which means that the shark probably wouldn't be there at all. And the battery would be underwater and it would have shocked everything before you got on the boat. So this kind of renders this question completely meaningless.
I said, I think it's a good question.
One of the things we can do as educators is ask better questions, because sometimes students are going to come up with solutions that aren't really the answer that you wanted, but the answer is still right. I mean, I look at this example of someone asked to draw a clock set to that time. That clock is set to that time. It's not that clock face you wanted, but that is correct. That answer is not wrong because you didn't word the question very well. If the question is, would you rather be eaten by a shark or electrocuted? That's a much better question. Before I leave, there is actually something I really need to address. So I've been around boats a long time. I spent a summer sailing on this thing. This is the Lady Maryland. My friends, when I used to live in Baltimore, they had a boat. We would tool around on that. I've been sailing. I've been motorboating. We used to own a motorboat when I was a kid. I went to a college that's #1 for sailing. So I've been around boats a lot. And this 2 knot per hour speed limit thing until you get 70 miles from the coast, ridiculous. That is completely false. Nobody's doing that. That is absolutely not a thing. Bottom line, if you want students to succeed, ask better questions that challenge their brain power. I hope you have a super awesome, cool day. Take it easy. Bye.